So Xiaomi's Redmi Note 10 Pro is still one of my favourite budget smartphones of 2021 thus far, packing some really impressive specs and features for under 300 quid. But Xiaomi, of course, just to complicate matters, is in the habit of releasing rivals to its very own smartphones every other week or so, just to really confuse the hell out of us all. So just when you might be thinking, yeah, the Redmi Note 10 Pro, that looks like the budget phone for me, well, now we've got a fresh member of the family hitting the UK for a similar sort of price point, the Redmi Note 10 5G. And this smartphone boasts one of the very few features missing from the Note 10 Pro, namely 5G support, but it does also strip out some of the best bits of the Pro model, including the AMOLED screen, while the camera tech and the other hardware has also been tinkered with. So the burning question is, does the Redmi Note 10 5G make too many sacrifices in order to achieve that 5G support? Spoiler alert, yeah, it really does. But I've had my SIM card slapped inside of the Redmi Note 10 5G for the past week or so. I've been using it as my full-time smartphone, so here is my in-depth review. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, there's not really much to report on the design front. My grey model still isn't particularly stiffy-inducing. I would definitely recommend snatching up one of the more colourful versions if you can. But the good news is that plastic backing is still almost in perfect nick a full week on, despite the fact that I've left the bundle column case off of the Redmi Note 10 5G. There's literally a tiny, teeny little scuff right there. That's the only sign of wear and tear on this back end. And while there is some obvious scratching around front, this has all happened to the pre-installed screen protector, so the actual Gorilla Glass 3 display that's underneath is still pristine. As hoped, that matte finish around back also means no hideous, disgusting finger smears when you handle the Redmi Note 10 5G. Give it the occasional polish on your pants or whatever, and it'll keep on looking smart, if not exactly, oh my god, it's so gorgeous I must fall to my knees in reverence. Switch on the Redmi Note 10 5G and you'll be swiping and poking your way through MiUI 12, Xiaomi's own launcher sat all comfy on top of Android 11. And of course I've reviewed, or it certainly feels like I've reviewed, about a dozen Xiaomi smartphones already in 2021. So what can I say about MiUI 12 that I haven't already said over and over and over again? Well, I mean, bugger all really, to be perfectly honest. And I know that MiUI is a very divisive launcher. Some people still really aren't fans. They find it a bit clunky. I personally find I enjoy MiUI more and more with every single update. It's got more of a stock Android vibe these days, thank God. And of course, you still get an ever-expanding selection of excellent bonus features sat there on top as well, like a delicious chili marinade slathered on top of a pile of gorgeous meat. Some YouTube rumours have it that MiUI is riddled with ads and generally buggy, but I've not really found that in version 12. The few ads that you may see can be fully disabled, and yeah, the launcher is quite heavy, so UI skimming can be a bit clunky, but otherwise there are very few issues. The one main issue that I've noticed over the last week of using the Redmi Note 10 5G full time, and it's something that I don't tend to get on other MiUI devices, is that swiping from the edges isn't always the most responsive. Sometimes I end up accidentally selecting stuff instead. And apart from that, no issues, no crashes, anything like that. You've got full NFC support with Google Pay here in the UK as well, although I believe that is a regional dependent feature, so if you live outside of Blighty, you want to check that definitely is supported. On the edge, fingerprint sensor works absolutely fine, and the face recognition is also good, although not the most secure around, because the phone will unlock even when you're wearing a mask, which is great when you're out and about, but as I say, others might be able to use that to their advantage. And there's plenty of space in this thing for all of your apps, media and other bits as well. You've got a choice of 64 or 128 gigs of internal storage, and that is expandable via microSD. And one of the main disadvantages if you decide to grab this 5G model rather than the Redmi Note 10 Pro is the fact that you get an IPS screen rather than an AMOLED display. Still seems reasonably bright and everything, but you don't get those same punchy colors, you don't get the same sharp contrast, and because it's not an OLED, you don't get an always-on display. Still, this 6.5-inch panel is fine, if unremarkable, for all of you can't be f***ed to actually do any work shenanigans, whether you while away an afternoon slumped on the sofa indulging in some online pew-pews or relaxing with some telly or movies, be it some bat mental anime or classic shows from your youth. The Full HD Plus resolution keeps things pretty sharp, viewing angles are okay, and those colours don't exactly pop, but they aren't too muted either. I am not a fan of that central selfie orifice though, taking an ill-advised leaf straight out of Samsung's phone book. The auto brightness is a bit janky though. I found that in the evenings when things are quite ambient, often the screen just dimmed down a little bit too much, so it wasn't really comfortable to view, so I had to bump it up manually. And on that top brightness level, it's alright, although if you've got bright sunshine outside, you will kind of struggle to see what's going on at times. And presumably, if you are hot for a bit of 5G, you will be streaming lots of media or playing lots of online games, so it is a shame that you don't get a really good screen here. It definitely seems like an unworthy sacrifice overall. And yeah, it is a 90Hz display, but as I mentioned before, you don't really get to take advantage of that silky smooth refresh rate because of the clunky launcher, which just kind of slows everything down a little bit. So fine for supported apps, but general everyday UI shenanigans not so good. Still no real complaints on the audio side. It's only a mono speaker output here, but the sheer volume of it more than makes up for that. I'm mostly just stuck with Bluetooth headphones over the last few days and absolutely no troubles with wireless streaming whatsoever. You do have a headphone jack up top as well, which again works perfectly, especially if you're enjoying a good bit of music with that high-res audio certification. But yeah, we're talking perfect crystal clarity for your tunes. If ears were capable of jizzing, they would be positively spurting. Now let's chat performance, and I've got no complaints there to be fair either. The 7nm MediaTek Dimensity 700 chipset coped fine with all my everyday shenanigans, even in this base model with its 4 gigs of RAM. And of course this delivers 5G support over both of the dual SIM slots as well, and that's the main advantage here over that Redmi Note 10 Pro. So definitely bag yourself a 5G contract and make sure you're living in an area that actually has 5G support. Maybe actually do those things the other way around, and then in no time at all you'll be enjoying a hot bit of 5G action. If you want a game on the go, then that's particularly good news for fans of PubG, Call of Duty and those other online titles where you run around like a coke-addled hyena until some 12-year-old tit snipes you from a rooftop at the other side of the map. Call of Duty certainly ran fine here on the Redmi Note 10 5G, even on those top detail settings. I got a consistently smooth frame rate every match, the screen was nice and responsive too, not that it actually gave me a chance to win because my reactions are still slower than a legless sloth, but hey ho, what are you gonna do? Time makes fools of us all. And the Redmi Note 10 5G once again packs in a 5000 mAh battery, which once again means all day play. Basically, good friggin' luck draining this thing before bedtime. I did absolutely everything on it, used as a sat nav, lots of camera play of course, using it to Skype the folks back home, lots of Call of Duty action, streaming media, YouTube, Deezer, all that good stuff, and I tended to end the day with at least 25 to 30% battery life remaining. Definitely easily as good as any other rivals that I've reviewed recently, including the likes of the Oppo A74 5G, which also has a 5000 mAh cell. The only disadvantage here is that you've got an 18-watt charging speed, which means it is the slowest to recharge out of all of the Redmi Note 10 series handsets. Another sacrifice you'll have to make for that 5G. And speaking of sacrifices, you'll also find that Xiaomi has somewhat stripped back the camera tech slapped there on the back end of this blower. The Redmi Note 10 5G still sports a 48 megapixel primary shooter slapped there on the back end, just like the standard Note 10, although budget phone fans will recall of course that the Redmi Note 10 Pro upgraded that to an excellent 108 megapixel shooter. And unlike the rest of the Redmi Note 10 family, unfortunately don't get an ultra wide angle shooter here on the back end of the Redmi Note 10 5G. All you got there is a basic 2 megapixel macro lens and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. That main shooter does struggle with strong lighting as well, so your subject and overall scene will occasionally look quite murky when you're snapping in bright daylight. I noticed a clear difference between this and rivals like the Oppo A54 5G and the Moto G50. Meanwhile, indoor pics are often grainy as hell, a real step backwards again from other Xiaomi handsets around this price. And don't even try really in low light because you'll get nothing but murk, while the night mode doesn't really make much of a difference most of the time. Basically, I would say if the camera is in any way a priority for you when you're looking for your next smartphone, then I would avoid the Redmi Note 10 5G like a plaguey thing. Definitely this sort of price point, the Pro impressed me a lot more. As for your home movies, well, the video tops off at full HD and there's no 4K smarts at all, so don't expect sharp detailed footage when you view back on a bigger screen. And again, with imperfect conditions, you'll get far from great results. Audio is generally captured fine, but when the wind picks up, that does kind of overrule everything else. And up front, you've got a very basic 8 megapixel selfie shooter, which again suffers in comparison to the rest of the Redmi Note 10 fam. This once again often struggles in strong light and often smooths out my features even when I knock off that beauty bollocks. So yet again, yeah, a bit of a disappointment. So that in a nutshell is the Redmi Note 10 5G, and I've got to say, just like Xiaomi's Mi 11 Lite 5G, bit of a disappointment. There were just too many sacrifices to achieve that 5G support, and frankly, I've got to say, for this sort of price, we'll just say bollocks to 5G. It's not really 100% necessary unless you're going to be doing an awful lot of streaming. I'm talking like downloading ridiculous definition movies and playing a lot of online games, and frankly, you won't really want to be doing that with a bog standard IPS screen anyway. Anyway, check out my full roundup of the best budget smartphones under £300 for any idea of what other stuff you can get around this sort of price point. I will be updating my best budget 5G phones roundup as well, so take a squint at that. And if you're dead set on 5G, check out Xiaomi's Mi 10T Lite instead, which I really enjoyed. Great smartphone, and you can often find good deals on it. So that's what I think, but who am I? Just some bald twat in some room in his house banging on at a camera about what I think about shiny gadgets. What do you think about the Redmi Note 10 5G? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do plug subscribe, ding that notifications bell, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.